Greetings, warlords. Welcome to Saga Thursday, the show all about the skirmish miniatures game from Studio Tomahawk. Joined by special guest this time, DJ. How's it going, my man?
Going good, Rodge. How are you?
Oh, good, good. So we are going to be talking about the Britons today. So you sent me my favorite message I could ever get. Hey, do you need me to do someone for a faction review? Always my favorite message. And you volunteered for the Britons, so that was great to hear. I don't know a lot of people playing these, but you did need some lead time here to kind of. Did you message me before you had built the army, or was it in process? Or what stage were the Britons when you pinged me?
They were about 25% complete.
Okay.
And I just finished my second read through of Warlord Chronicles by Bernard Cornwell, and I was like, I'm doing
Ooh,
it. I'm
that's the
doing it.
motivation. Yeah, Bernard Cornwell causing many a Briton and Viking player, depending on which series you end up reading first. So that's great to hear. So you were building the force, and you said, you know what? I'm feeling like I'm going to be an expert on this. Let me ping Rodge. But it did take 3 or 4 months, I think. And
Yep.
then you had, I'm sure, plenty of games. You played a tournament in the meantime, and the Britons came out on top. And good news, maybe, I don't know, if you had come in last, you might have just canceled the whole faction review. You know, Raj, I'm not the man for it, but
Nah.
no, we came through. So that's awesome to hear. Now, did you go through a couple different builds of these, or the first kind of initial build is what you used, and what worked?
So I first started with dismounted everything
Okay.
just to figure that out and no mercenaries. And it was Warlord with companions because you have to, thematically, at least. That's what I thought initially. And
Mm-hmm.
then I did a point of dismounted Hearthguard, 3.5 points of warriors, and a point of bow levy. And that's what I started with. And then just with doing some play testing with my group here in Indianapolis,
Mm-hmm.
I learned that they really need another form of shooting that is not levy. And thus I got to my build that is, and they need to be faster. And so
Okay.
that's where I landed on a mounted warlord with mounted companions, 1 point of mounted Hearthguard, 2.5 points of warriors, 1 point of deserters, and 1 point of levy bow.
Okay, cool. Dipping into the mercenaries to solve an issue. I love it. So, yeah, we haven't even gotten to the options here, but the warlord can be foot or mounted. The Hearthguards have to follow suit. Warriors, no special equipment, and then levies with the javelin or bow option. And you mentioned our good friends, the companions, which why don't you tell us how the companions work? Because it's probably the coolest thing I think about the faction, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, I completely agree. I love the thematics of it because it reverts back to Bernard Cornwell's novel and how Dervil or Arthur had their like closest companions that would fight with them.
The crew.
So oh yeah, so what it is you have to give up a 0.5 point of either warriors or Hearthguard to then be companions, and then the companions themselves are Hearthguard figures, and so they form with the warlord a heroic unit. And so the aggression for that heroic unit goes from just baseline 8 with the warlord to 12.
Yeah, there isn't much that starts at 12 in Saga, so that's awesome. And then it's some extra some bodies there too. So
Mhm.
your warlord he has his resilience, and
Oh
there's a
yeah.
couple ways to soup that up with the board, but he also has a couple extra hit points in the form of these guys.
Hmm.
He's kind of dragging these bodyguards around with him. And I suppose he can still use the bodyguards from other Hearthguard units, or is there something in the rules of a heroic unit or something that would stop that?
So and if I say this wrong, then anyone can correct me. That's fine.
Yeah.
So, in order to use regular Hearthguard, your companions have to be dead.
Okay.
But I haven't found anything in the rules that says you can't take a companion as opposed to taking a fatigue.
Mm-hmm.
So that, and I might be wrong on that one.
So if your warlord takes a hit and you don't want to take the fatigue, you just remove a companion. Is that what you're
Yes.
saying right there?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I think that's perfectly fine. Resilience is always optional, whether you want to use that or not. Most of the times you would, but there's certain situations like this where I think, if you got to activate the warlord again, or there's strategery there. So interesting.
Yep, which I did that like maybe 3 times in the tournament to just took a companion rather than a fatigue because I needed to be able to do something the next turn or right after.
Keep the fight going.
Yep.
I love it. All right, so these companions are extra handy with your warlord because of another rule for the faction, which is galvanized or galvanization here. So this basically, how does galvanize work?
So galvanization is if it was just the warlord and all units that are loyal or actually part of the faction are with an S, they are considered galvanized. And what that does is on the advanced saga abilities, there are certain extra benefits that you get from triggering those in their respective phases of combat. And then if you have companions, instead of short, it's very short galvanized range.
Mm-hmm. But with the formation, so the companions are very short from the warlord, and then they have bases of their own, which you could make really large, or if it's just a cab base, you just go the wide way if you need it. So it makes your little galvanized bubble a little bigger instead of a 4-inch bubble, kind of closer to a 6-inch bubble perhaps. Yes. Or you could swing it one way or the other. So to get the galvanization, they got to be near your warlord. So having the warlord durable with companions is a good play. Is there a reason not to take the companions? In your opinion, would you? I think if a newbie is starting, you would say just take them. But if you're like a veteran or something, is there any reason you wouldn't take them? And this is a personal question, obviously.
To be honest, I don't see any reason why you wouldn't take them because they provide extra survivability for your warlord. They give you extra melee attacks. They increase the galvanization range and they increase the we obey range all at the same time because the we obey is from the unit as a whole. So there's too many benefits. Now, does it take a half point away? Yes. Do some people find warriors more economical? Sure. But the board wants a wrecking ball warlord.
Those are the saga fuddy-duddies who just pile up their warriors. Come on now. Got to take the companions. Yeah, I would say, in my opinion, just having looked at it and looking at the board, I would say if you don't want to take the companions, take a different faction because that's what these guys are about. So lean in. All right. So that is very cool and interesting. We'll see as we go through the board. So it looked like some of the abilities were pretty good, and Galvanize made them better. And then some of them maybe weren't good, but were okay with Galvanize.
Yeah.
So there's that dynamic going on. So let's jump to the battle board. And up top, we got the usual stuff. So we're just going to jump down to Petalus here. And we're cracking right off with a 2-die ability. I don't think any board has a 2-die ability up in this upper left-hand corner here. So I'm digging it already. But it's melee. You get a +1 bonus to all your attack dice. And if your unit is galvanized, your opponent must discard 1 defense die that cancels a hit. So in this example, so I think 2 die for +1 to hit is pretty standard in Saga, so that's a fair price. And then in this case, the Galvanize is giving you a little icing on the cake with removing a defense die. So I played the Saxon board, which has a couple similar abilities, so I really like those. So I think that's cool. For you, though, I know there's 2 die sticklers out here where they, it could be an auto win, but they won't spend it because it has 2 dice. So what's your opinion here on the I guess, it kind of depends on the rest of the board too, where your dice are slinging. Does this one get played for you?
So I do like this ability. I like to pair it with Britannia. Anything that says like if your unit's galvanized, I love to pair it with Britannia, which we'll get into in a little bit. But I like to use this when I have a chance to auto hit or roll 2s across the board, because at that point, like if you go in with your 4-pack of Hearthguard, 8 hits, and this is the one or 2 of the melee abilities, like you're most likely going to hit 75% or more of your hits because of the +1, and you also get that cancels a defense die. So it good for warlord sniping, good for low armor units to just wipe them out, and if they have fatigue to get to that auto hit, if you take them down to armor 2, you got them. You can auto hits all across the board.
That's awesome. Love auto hits all day. And I don't think we specifically mentioned it in Galvanize, but the warlord himself is not galvanized, correct? So
that is
like
correct.
A little, maybe not intuitive thing there. You would assume that he is. In the first bullet point, sounds like he is, but if you read the second or the third one, clarifies that he's not. So when we're keeping these in mind, the warlord is a badass because of his companions, not necessarily because he's galvanized. But he's got a few abilities that he can play with here. So let's jump down to one of those, which is Douche Bilorum. Douche Bilorum. A couple ways to say that, perhaps.
Yep.
Any die, which is great. Orders ability, warlord or heroic unit. Till the start of your next turn, the unit gained resilience 2. So they would always have resilience 1, so jacking that up. And resilience 3 if you're using the rare. And yeah, lasts till the start of your next turn. So you're getting both your turn and your opponent's. So a lot can be done here. When is it when's it time to pop this? I mean, when the warlord's going in, do you use it kind of proactively, defensively to dissuade people?
So a little situational. It's based off of obviously what my opponent's about to do or what I think they're going to do, right? If I feel like they're getting ready to do an offensive and I may not be ready for it with, let's say I'm just trying to move up, then I'm going to trigger that so that if they try and do a snipe on my warlord, it's instead of if I just put a common or uncommon down, you're going to need 9 wounds to take him out. Good luck. Good luck.
You're like an elephant, say Rodge on the elephant types levels of defensive damage there. So, yeah, absolutely can sling off a couple large attacks with that ability. And, yeah, it's kind of cool. So you could definitely see where you would maybe burn the companion or something if they just did like 1 hit or something and had another one coming up. You would save the resilience for the next attack, maybe if you think they're coming in. So I can already see the possibilities there. Now, so with the Britons, they're galvanized around the warlord. Are people gutting for the warlord? When they play against you? Is that like it, or if you were playing against the Britons, is the juice worth the squeeze to try to really take out that warlord, or is it just so difficult until later in the game?
In the games I've played, whenever anyone has tried to come at my warlord, it never ended well.
Yeah, all right. Come
Their
at me, bro.
yeah, it never ended well. I would always try to make sure I'd pair it, if I knew they were coming at me, pair it with a defensive ability as well, so that if it was the first attack, I could survive that. But if I felt like it was going to be their feint attack, I would just wait to use it towards their bigger attack. And yeah, once you do Bilorum, which once I hit the offensive, I use it every turn. Every turn, no matter what, because it increases the life and usability of the warlord, who is the linchpin of the offensive ability of this faction.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can see that. Turns 2, 3, and 4. You've got your warlord. It's probably fresh. He's got the companions. You got another Hearthguard unit. You got a couple defensive abilities. This could be. You could play this every turn. It's any die, so it could be very difficult to go against him. Now, how often are you using the rare on this one? Where does the rares get channeled on this board? Is it worth that extra pip?
In certain situations where I know I'm going to double or even sometimes triple activate, I'm not afraid of the double or triple activation, because ultimately it's about, am I going to be able to do what I want to do? And there's another ability that will help mitigate that later on in the board. So if I feel like I'm going to be double activating, then if I have the rare available, then I'm going to use it.
Okay.
And it just makes it that much harder to hurt him. And then he sits there like, yep, I'm right here. Come at me with all your stuff, and you're not going to get it.
That's crazy. Yeah, because you could, if you use the rare on there, even if you could go into a combat with 2 fatigues, or fight a combat on your turn, come out with 2 fatigues, and then it's for the next guy. They would have to do 4 4 damage in one go to kill him, even though he has 2 fatigues. He's only 1 away from exhausted. That's cool. Very cool. I love the aggressive warlord, so I'm digging this. Okay, let's go down. We got another 2-die ability here, impenetrable defense. This one's a common and uncommon. Opponent must reroll any of their attack dice that score a hit. So this one's pretty tasty. Now, a lot of 2-die abilities will be +1 armor. So I think I would rather have them re-rolling against me rather than increasing armor. But we'll see. You could actually do both with this board if you were so inclined. So I think that's a pretty fair price for a 2-die ability. And are the uncommons in demand on this board?
Yes. This board has a few rares in spots, but it really likes commons and uncommons, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Like when I'm a big Anglo-Dane fan, and that board loves uncommons and rares.
Sure.
So this is like, okay, I'll take commons and uncommons.
I'll take the commons and uncommons. Yeah. And it's kind of interesting because, no matter what your plan is, the warlord can be activated on anything. So you'll always have a unit that can fight, where if we're talking about the warrior, Saga warrior fuddy-duddies out there with their 48 warriors, there'll be a turn or two where it's just all uncommons, and they've statistically hosed themselves on that one turn. So for 2-die, are you using this one? Is this the defensive ability on the board?
This is the defensive ability if I know I want to do a big hit with my Hearthguard or warlord, and the reason is so that at the end of the melee, I'm taking as minimal casualties as possible, so that I can keep going, and I have more combat power for the next turn or the next activation if I want to double activate.
Yeah, this is awesome. Great combo with the warlord, the Hearthguard. Obviously, re-rolling 5s is juicier than re-rolling 3s against your levy or something like that. Re-rolling 4 is pretty good with the warriors too. If you close ranks, pop this, 3 out of 4 hits will miss, and then half that get through will be blocked statistically. So someone could do some math right there and come up with some really defensive stuff. I
think I used it against the Samites while I was the Carthaginian player I was playing against, Kevin. His Samites charged my warriors, and I had that ability queued up, and he obviously with the Samites you charge, I closed ranks, so he needed 4s, and he only got a few hits through while I rolled well, but he had to bounce back, and so it's great for a hard hitting unit like the Samites or the Galgadal to counter that.
Absolutely. Yeah, great ability, especially if you're running the Warlord, Hearthguard. Once the fatigues are out there, your tendency might be to use their fatigues to jack up the armor to 6 or cause auto misses. Where if you have this ability up, you just pop it, it's good enough, and then use their fatigues to lower them down and just straight up kill them. And this will keep your Hearthguard safe. So, very cool ability. All right, let's go to Call to Arms. An interesting ability here. Activate a unit for a move. Okay, so not a charge, specifically a move with a movement bonus of S. You can use any die for this. If it ends its activation more than medium from your warlord or any friendly heroic units, it suffers a fatigue. So this is great for bringing people to the warlord to become galvanized. What are the uses for this ability? Does it get used?
I use it almost every turn.
Okay.
One, it's the warrior activation with an uncommon. If
Boom.
things are not adding up with my dice, right? The other part is, let's say someone's coming up on my flank and it's a Hearthguard mounted unit of some sort. I can move a warrior unit M+S or my mounted Hearthguard M+S. And then at that point, my opponent now has to make a decision. Do I engage or do I pull back now that he's addressed his flank? So that's the other way that I use it. And then the last one is next man up. So, all right, well, these guys are depleted. I need another unit up here to be my punching bag before I bring in my heavy hitter. At War of Attrition, they come up, and then sometimes I've done Call to Arms and Britannia in the same turn just because I want to catch people off guard with a double activation, and that's a lot of movement length to go.
Absolutely. Yeah. So Britannia, we'll take a look at it, but it's another activation, but it activates the unit for a charge. Will you use this if your unit is going to suffer a fatigue? Or do you?
No, probably not.
Okay. Yeah. That's a pretty steep. Okay. So you would, instead of a regular activation, it would be an activation with the extra S. So you're trading an extra short for a fatigue. So probably not worth it, but it's there if you need it. Maybe a levy unit or something, which you can activate levies with a common using this ability here. So you could sling them around. That might be something you would do.
I've done that with my bow levy against like Welsh, Huns, or Goths and their mounted folks. Anthony will be extremely angry at me right now, but then I'll move my levy M&S, and then all of a sudden
that's hard to get away. That's
Norman
Norman volley fire right there. Typed speed with those guys. So that's cool. Yeah, I think it's a really interesting ability, and makes you think when you use it. So obviously your warlord is the kind of star of the show. So wherever he's going, yeah. Is there a big bubble of troops when you're playing, or how? That's how people talk about the Britons. Like, is that how it really goes, though? Would you say, or not? Really?
Kind of. If you do that, it's similar with any other faction that's slower, I'll say in quotes, right? You're going to get out activated and outshot. So I still like to spread out a little bit. And that's why I like the mounted Hearthguard for the flexibility of guaranteed L movement, right? And I'll put one or two units out on the flank, and then I'll have my 2 warrior units that I advanced up with and then my warlord advancing behind them. And then with the deserters, they advance with the warlord as a shooting or a melee option.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think you got to find that middle ground between the bubble and the line. So we haven't really. I mean, there's 5 more abilities that where Galvanize will come into play. So we'll see, how critical it is for these units to be so close to the warlord. So let's pop down to tenacious. So this is an uncommon melee ability. Gain 2 defense dice. If your unit is galvanized, cancel 1 casualty suffered by your unit during this melee. So I like it. It's kind of the flip side to Petalus there. I like symmetry in my battle board abilities when I see it. So gaining 2 defense dice is decent. I think if you're galvanized, probably worth it. It's uncommon. You said these babies were hot on here. Is tenacious getting that love?
I have not played this one as much. Usually I'll play it more as a defensive ability in my off turn as a way to mitigate anything that comes towards me. And sometimes they'll charge units that aren't galvanized, and I need the defense dice. But I do like to play it because it's only 1 die. Sometimes it will compete with like Shield Wall or Britannia, and so those abilities take priority.
Okay. Have you used it without a unit being galvanized to
Yes.
the auto? So the 2 defense dice will still be useful sometimes.
Yes, 2 defense dice is 2 defense dice. That's more than what you have, right? It increases your chances of surviving, having more figures that survive. And so with 1 die as the cost, to me that's worth it for 2 defense dice.
Okay. Yeah, I think so. If you close ranks, it's going to be an auto save or 2, depending on that math there. So, yeah, definitely better than combat bonus. So, some boards end up using the combat bonus more than they care to admit, but hopefully it's not the Britons here. I think we've got enough. We're working with enough here so far. All right, let's pop up to that top there. So we have the other warlord ability here. Pendragon, common or rare. You can reroll all your results of 1 or 2 on your attack die. If you use a rare, immediately remove a fatigue from your unit. Whew, that's juicy. That's good. Like that.
Oh yeah.
Be honest. Is this the first rare? Is this where the first rare goes? Be honest. Tell the truth.
If I'm going into melee and I have an extra rare, absolutely. Okay. If I'm going into melee with my warlord or my heroic unit, this ability is always queued up, period. Just because you get to reroll 1s and 2s, and most likely by the time your warlord gets in combat, there's a fatigue or maybe 2 on that unit, so you're going to get them down to 3 potentially.
Yeah,
or
that's
2.
That's the ultimate. Get them down to a 3. And when you're rerolling 1s and 2s, you're rerolling everything. So,
yep.
Love that. There's an ability like that with Masters of the Under-Earth in Age of Magic, and that's always the goal. Get that armor down to 3 and reroll everything. Extra rare on top. Love it. Now, so this is interesting. So we've got Pendragon, Douche Bilorum, our warlord only. And so these are like the 2 abilities. Well, I guess the warlord, he can use the other stuff, but he just won't get the extra bonus.
Correct.
So he could use tenacious, but he won't block the auto hit. Mm-hmm. If you're thinking defensively, do you have to like kind of decide, am I going to try to protect the warlord or go for galvanized units and maybe leave the warlord hanging? Is that a thought that enters your mind, or I'm just talking off the fly here, so maybe it's not?
Usually I think more defensive in the first few turns because my experience is a lot of people like the Alpha Strike, and so I'm just going to prepare for it. Okay. And once you get past that Alpha Strike, I then go to the offensive, right? And I don't stop. So
Daddy, don't stop.
No. So then pairing Pendragon with like Petalus makes everything hurt bad, right? Or Pendragon with Wall of Steel, amazing.
Okay, amazing. Yeah, that one gives us attack dice down the way there we'll get to. So yeah, obviously the bigger your die pool, the more these rerolls are juicier. So Very cool. Well, let's pop down to betrania. Activation ability. Activate a galvanized unit. If it activates for a charge, it gets 1 bonus attack die and counts as galvanized during the ensuing melee. So very important distinction there, where your unit can start their charge galvanized, but unless you maybe use this ability, you charge so far away from your warlord that when the time comes to pop your abilities, you are no longer within range of the warlord. So this ability here is the solution to that that problem, I would say, right?
Oh yeah.
So yeah, and another way to activate those warriors with an uncommon. Two ways to do it, baby.
Yep, I use this ability after turn 2 or 3 almost every turn. Because I'm ready to charge. I'm within charge range, right? I don't sit back, I continually advance. And so I'm ready to charge because I've probably been charged too. And so I'll charge one of my warrior units. I'm like, okay, I'm going to charge these guys in. They can take a few casualties. And then here comes my warlord queued up with pendragon. And then I just fatigue bombed all the units that you probably have around them. And now it's started the cascade effect.
Absolutely. So, yeah, you can kind of do a strike missile deep in enemy territory and remain galvanized. And then, like you say, if you just, the warlord follows up, they're still galvanized. They'll be galvanized for the next turn.
Yep.
And
I've done that with my mounted Hearthguard quite a few times, where I've sent them the full L away from the warlord, and they just destroy the unit, and then my warlord charges the unit right next to him, and it also destroys that unit. And then it's like, well, you just lost 2 dice in 1 turn.
Yeah, we're back and we're still galvanized, baby. Love it. And yeah, love those activation abilities. Let's get to Wall of Steel. This is a fun one here. Common or rare. Gain 2 attack dice, 4 if you use a rare. Gain 2 additional attack dice if your unit is galvanized. So very, very tasty. If you're galvanized, 4 attack dice for a common. That's pretty good in Saga. Rare at 6. That could be good too. This just seems like bread and butter ability here, right? Yeah. Not much to say about it. It's good.
This is my most used melee ability beyond pendragon. If I'm going to attack, I usually use this one. If this is the second place that I would put my rare if I was going into melee with a non-warlord unit, as that being the primary strike that turn.
Yeah. 6 attack dice, nothing to sneeze at for sure. I mean, your 4 Hearthguard go from 8 to 14, maybe 9 to 15 if they were Britannia previously. So, and there's maybe a little tiny warrior unit could be double. He starts at 1. He's Britannia, and then he gets Wall of Steel up to 4 attacks dice. You can have a nasty little one-man bomb there. If you're so inclined, it would take a few dice to pull that off. So the wisdom there is questionable, but it can be done. It can be done.
I hadn't even thought of that, but I also hadn't come to the situation where I needed to send a one-man Tomahawk missile towards a warlord. But now it's in there. I got it now.
Yeah, there we go. Combine it with Petalus, give him +1 to cancel that one. You just go all out. All right. Next up is Shield Wall. Now, do the Danes have a Shield Wall ability? Is it called Shield Wall? I feel like there's a Shield Wall or 2 out there.
Yes. And it's increase armor. Shooting reaction, increase armor. Is it shooting reaction?
I think it's melee or shooting reaction.
Yeah.
So this one's a little different because it's shooting reaction. So common, uncommon. Your unit counts as being in light cover during the shooting attack. And if it's galvanized, you also gain 2 defense dice. So this is the first and close to maybe only shooting defense. Maybe hold the line next could be used for that. Because impenetrable defense and tenacious are melee only abilities. So this is it. are Britons? Are you getting shot up as Britons?
I get shot at a lot, if that
Okay.
answers the question. I use shield wall a lot.
So do you usually
To
default to mounted warlord, mounted hearthguard?
Yes.
Usually.
So that's another benefit. Your warlord, your mounted warlord, mounted hearthguard are now in light cover.
Okay.
They're-
Well,
yeah,
does the
right.
little blurb say that?
Yep. Your unit counts as being in light cover during this shooting attack.
Okay.
So basically, they save on 3s, right? But I'll use it to also just preserve
Oh boy,
my
DJ.
figures.
The last line of the little blurb here. Remember that a mounted unit can never benefit from cover.
But don't advanced saga abilities break the rules?
Well, the little blurb here. The little blurb here.
Uh-oh.
I don't want to cast ill upon your good efforts. Honest
Okay.
mistake.
Well, dang it.
So the only reason that comes to me is in Saga Age of Magic. There's abilities that will say that, and they'll usually have something to say, even if your unit cannot normally
Okay.
claim the cover. So it jumped out to me that that extra little blurb wasn't there. So you could still use this absolutely on a mounted unit for the galvanized defense dice portion of it, but being so the horses wouldn't gain the light cover at the current moment, judging by the little blurb there in the book.
I definitely missed that one, so I apologize.
Yeah, there's usually something in here. Well, usually I'll ask the question and then not actually look it up while we're recording the video, and it'll just kind of hang out there. So I was made sure to have the book with me this time so I could look it up and see. So I'm learning as a video maker. All right. So
But yeah, I like the ability a lot in general anyways, just to make sure I have what I need when I'm going to eventually reach you in melee.
absolutely 2 defense dice, nothing to slough at. And then if you're using this on your foot sloggers, get that light cover, that's awesome. Not going to take any damage in that volley. The next one here could be used to jack up some units because this is a 2-die. Who is this? Am I reading this right? An uncommon and a rare.
Yeah, it hurts.
We don't see too many of those in the game of Saga. Order's reaction, 2. So no matter what's going on here, you have to decide on your turn that you don't need an uncommon or a rare, and you can hold off till the other guy's turn before you get benefits. I already am a little questionable here, but until the end of the turn, so this is the other guy's turn, all units that were galvanized at the moment you triggered this ability increase their armor by 1. So if you got a nice big blob there around the warlord, this is tasty. So this is the third 2-die ability, and so people don't like having one of those on a board, and this one has 3. Is this one getting play here?
Very rare. I have to be facing the mounted Welsh horde, the mounted Hun horde, the Carolingian machine gun. So the extreme situations where I know I'm going to potentially be shot off the board.
Those are great situations where this would be very valuable against multiple shooting shots. You're getting that, if they're foot Hearthguard, 5 to 6, warriors 4 to 5, or the mounted Hearthguard 4 to 5. So, yeah, absolutely, yeah. You're speaking to me there against those factions at least, but against other ones.
I didn't use it one bit in the tournament this past weekend because I didn't face. I faced the Irish, which are an extreme shooting army, but I did not encounter the situation where I needed to use it. So, but I did use it. I've used it against the Welsh, against my buddy, and I've survived. You could call it like the quadruple javelin activation, the stuff that they do. I've used it against the Huns and survived like without any casualties, the Hun onslaught of shooting that they have. But it's, you have to you have to anticipate what they're going to do in order for it to really benefit you. Otherwise, it is a very expensive ability that I don't like to play.
Yeah, expensive. You got to have everything within the bubble, because if you have that one unit out, that's like the death sentence for that. Yeah, those guys are going to go down because they're going to focus on them. But yeah, definitely against those composite bow, javelin armies, the multiple shootings, because not only works against the shooting, even if they go into combat, it's still working there. You still got +1 armor there. So yeah, they're kind of damned if they do, damned if they don't. So expensive, but yeah, you gotta, I guess, know that, because you could easily queue up 2, shield wall or impenetrable defense, or whatever that tenacious, okay, and have a really concentrated point defense against that one big attack.
Yeah,
which will be more effective than having a little extra defense on everything. So, all right. Well, we have made it to the end of the line. Withhold the line. So, interesting mix here. So, good melee defense, a couple good melee damage dealing abilities. Potentially weaker against shooting, but you've got a couple tools in the toolkit here. Are the Britons fun to play, though? That's the big question. What would you, compared to other war bands, have you been enjoying your time with them?
So I'm partial to grindy war bands like the Anglo-Danes. I blame Nick Mahalis for getting me started on those guys watching the faction review a few years ago. But I like the grindy factions, one, because everyone underestimates them, and two, like, the way I look at the game is it's a game within the game, just like you and Monty say all the time. And if you can have more patience than your opponent and make better decisions, you're going to win. And so if you have a faction that promotes patient play, which the Britons are a patient play faction, you're going to do a lot better than if you are trying to make an alpha strike and you don't really know or have the tools to make it succeed every time. That's an extremely risky play with no mitigation. And so that's why I draw more towards Britons and Anglo-Danes. I've played Spanish. I like the Spanish, but I like these a lot better.
Give us the hot take, DJ. Are these mounted Anglo-Danes?
Some might try and compare it. I think they have...
Because the Anglo-Dane warlord, they got the killer warlord, and you want to take some Hearthguard, probably.
You're calling me out. I feel targeted right now, man.
So, are you just staying inside your comfort zone, DJ?
No, they have a lot more mobility. And I chose them because of thematics, not because of the board.
Yep.
The board was just a side effect or another thing that was there, right? And I think they like melee a lot more, and they're not as dice hungry, and they have a lot more mobility than the Anglo-Danes because they have mounted, right? Like your base movement is L with some units, where the Anglo-Danes, it's all M across the board. And then you have ability that can add movement to your movements. So it's like they move faster. They have cheaper, better defensive abilities, and their warlord is I would say the top wrecking ball in all of Saga.
Okay, that was going to be my next question. Is the companions? There's a couple of really good abilities here. Are they the ultimate aggressive warlord, or because of the galvanization mechanic, you always want to keep them back and play it safe? So maybe it's not as aggressive as you would think about on the surface. But I mean, you just said you thought he was the most aggressive. So you think that his overall power kind of overrides the tendency, I think, with galvanization, maybe to hide him or just kind of have him as a mobile buffer, if there's such a word.
Yeah, with the Anglo-Danes, I would play the warlord definitely to preserve the we obey because of how dice hungry the board is, right?
Okay.
But with this one, if I don't play my warlord aggressive, I'm not gonna do well. Like
Okay.
the warlord
I
needs
like.
to be played aggressive, otherwise you're wasting you're wasting two abilities on the board that are, in my opinion, the strongest abilities for this
Yeah,
faction.
buddy. No gimmicks. Just straight up good.
Yep.
But must be used on the warlord. All right. Do your opponents have fun coming up against the Briton wall? Do they start out
Uh,
really chummy and then they get kind of glum by turn 4?
it's kind of the some people do, I guess. A buddy of mine that I play against that helped me train and test some stuff before the tournament. He, like a lot of others, thought the Britons were weak, and then through several games of him trying to alpha strike my warlord, sometimes like 2 or 3 times in a game, he never killed him. Or at Adepticon, or not Adepticon, wow, at NashCon, he was charged a few times, or I was charging several times, and it just was a wrecking ball. And people were just caught off guard.
Awesome. All right. Last question. Is this more of a veteran's force, would you say? Could a newbie have success with this one? Or should this be maybe your second or third warband if you're thinking about it as an official recommendation?
I think it being your second warband would be good. You really need to have the saga basics down in order to make this board sing. I know a lot of boards that's what you need, but with the galvanization and then trying to figure out how to move your dice around to get the most out of moving your units forward, like that takes a little bit more of saga experience to do.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would agree with you just from everything that we've seen here. Obviously, Galvanize, it's a more complicated mechanism that most warbands don't have. You have the companions, the heroic unit, and then you have the extra decisions to be made as if they're galvanized or not. Do I move out of range or whatever?
Yeah.
So I think those decisions will be a little easier for someone with some saga under their belt
I would agree.
to get the hang of. But now, for the longest time, if you wanted Briton models, for me, the only choice was the footsore Briton medals. But since
Which they're
then,
gorgeous.
they're beautiful. They would, if I'm doing it, those are the models I'm using. But I do know they have Victrix has some of their
Oh yeah.
late Romans / Britons now. Are those what you are using, or what are you using?
I'm extremely partial to plastics. I like to do a lot of conversion or kit bashing, and so yes, I use Victrix almost exclusively for a lot of my warbands. I'll do 3D prints as well with Marco's Reconquer Design. But yeah, Victrix is my whole force. I do have a Gripping Beast Merlin and then like a Gripping Beast Hero, but it's specific because I really love that sculpt and I want to make it a part of the thematic of Age of Arthur.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, the seer or the bishop, whatever.
Yep.
He's got a little meat on him. He can fight a little bit if you want him to. That's cool. Yeah, I like the idea of that. So I would say those two. I think the Wargames Atlantic. Do they have some suitable run? Did you look at those?
They do have some late Romans and then the Goths, and I think they're coming out with Franks as well.
Frankies.
And they would work just fine. I don't know. I'm extremely partial to what Victrix has been doing lately. Like their stuff is on another level right now.
Yeah, those look pretty good. I love that scale armor on those. I'm not the biggest fan of the Vikings and the chainmail and stuff. And but those guys, they're similar in a way, but that extra armor, I think they look a lot cooler than the Vikings in my opinion. So I wouldn't rule those out. But all right, well, thank you, my man, for stepping up. This is really fun to chat with you, and you might be helping out at Adepticon this year. We don't want to lock anything. Also, I'm not sure when this video is coming out, so maybe it'll be a done deal. Maybe it won't. But you've offered in the past, and you're offered again, so stay tuned for that. And you're down in Indiana there. I know there's a big event coming up. I don't think this video will be out before then, unfortunately, with the timing here to pimp it. But check out. I know there's Indiana Saga Facebook page that I got invited to. Are you on there?
Of course. You got to represent, right?
All right. So yeah, if you're Indiana area, check that out. Otherwise, I know you're on the Discord. Elderman Andrews. You're always in there posting good stuff. Happy to see that. So is that probably the best way for people to get a hold of you if they want to really get some?
Yeah, Discord's a pretty good way to
some more
get a
Britain
hold of
secrets.
Me. Yep. Yeah. You'll always see me posting controversial takes and debating the how to play the game, I guess.
Absolutely. Love it. All right. Well, yeah, I don't know. We're coming up on Adepticon soon, so hopefully we'll see you there. Maybe you'll be running something. But otherwise, I want to give a thanks to Terry, Patrick, Sean, Mitchell, Kevin, Scott, and you, DJ. You're also a patron over on the Saga Thursday Patreon. So you and those other chaps and everybody listed here are part of the reason I'm able to do these additional faction review videos. So thank you for that. And yeah, definitely, folks, comment below if we got anything wrong there. No one hesitates to comment when you get things wrong. But if we get things right, too, please comment below. If you play the Britons, have a different take on it than DJ here, or disagree with our assessments, let us know. I'm always curious to hear people's thoughts on these war bands. So, all right. Well, I think that's going to be it for this one. Thanks, buddy. Hopefully we haven't seen the last of you, and we'll catch you later.
Thanks, Rodge. Thanks for having me on.
All right, bye-bye. Saga! If you'd like to see more Saga content, consider joining the Heathen Army over on Patreon or popping on down to the Saga Thursday Discord server. Links below. Thanks, guys.